Most people rush to ask what to invest in before they ever organize what they earn. They look for stock picks, crypto plays, or the next opportunity, but skip the foundation entirely. Investing is only as strong as the structure feeding it. If income has no system, growth has no consistency. And without consistency, even good investments fail to create real progress. That's why there is so much noise surrounding investing in the stock market, because most people are operating without the right information, structure, discipline, and system. Unstructured investing amplifies that noise. It spreads confusion between people and makes it harder for the average person to distinguish signal from distraction. Before explaining exactly what to invest in, Roth IRA, index funds, Bitcoin, brokerage accounts, we need to shape income correctly first. Investing only works when income has structure. A simple framework is this. Let's just say 70% of income goes toward rent, bills, necessities, food, and transportation. 30% remains. That 30% is what most people use entirely for short-term happiness. Eating out, upgrades, impulse spending, lifestyle inflation. And this is where everything usually goes wrong. But instead of letting that entire portion disappear, we prioritize allocation into a tax-advantaged growth engine first. The first priority is maxing out a Roth individual retirement account. The current contribution limit is $7,000 per year. Within your Roth IRA, your contributions invested in index funds grow tax-free, and withdrawals in retirement at 59.5 years old are tax-free. That's not small, that's structural. Index funds are diversified investment funds that track large sections of the market, such as the S&P 500 or total market indexes. The S&P 500 represents 500 of the largest companies in the United States. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Tesla. These are globally recognized businesses embedded into everyday life, driving technology, commerce, transportation, and consumer behavior at massive scale. Instead of trying to pick individual winning stocks, they allow you to own a broad collection of companies at once, capturing overall economic growth over time. That is long-term protection and long-term growth working at the same time. Protection and growth simultaneously. The faster you max out your Roth IRA for the year, the sooner you can allocate additional income into other growth engines like Bitcoin, or savings for property or business in a high-yield savings account. Saving cash should be viewed as stability, not growth. Cash preserves flexibility and protects against uncertainty, but it does not compound at the rate productive assets do. Cash has a job. Growth has a different job. Its role is security and optionality, not wealth expansion. The US dollar has a specific job. It is a spending and borrowing currency. Property transactions are processed in dollars. Stocks are priced in dollars. Businesses operate in dollars. Loans are issued and repaid in dollars. The entire American economic system clears through the dollar. That is why it remains valuable, because it is required for participation. Cash is therefore primarily transactional. It exists to process buying, selling, and borrowing. It exists for unexpected expenses, which is why we call it an emergency fund. It is designed for movement, not multiplication. Let that sink in. There is no strategic reason to hold large amounts of it beyond stability needs, because its function is utility, not expansion. Productive assets, property, stock markets, and businesses grow the dollar. They use the dollar as fuel and convert it into increasing value over time. Bitcoin and gold serve a different function. They preserve purchasing power outside of the traditional monetary system. But Bitcoin is unique because it does more than preserve. It is digitally scarce, fixed in supply, decentralized, and globally transferable. That combination allows it to act as both a hedge against monetary debasement and a growth asset driven by adoption and network expansion. The dollar is engineered for liquidity and transaction flow. Bitcoin is engineered for scarcity and long-term preservation. Different roles, different jobs, no confusion. Understanding these roles removes confusion. You stop asking cash to grow. You stop asking emergency funds to outperform markets. You stop misplacing capital. Each asset has a job. Structure is assigning capital to the correct job. This is the mindset shift. Another alternative, instead of letting money sit idle while saving for a business or property, is allowing that capital to compound in a regular brokerage account invested in index funds. Yes, gains are taxed when withdrawn, but growth is still occurring during the waiting period. This is why building an investor's mindset matters. When someone understands the power of having multiple growth engines running simultaneously, tax-free growth in a Roth IRA, taxable growth in a brokerage account, asymmetric upside in Bitcoin, capital reserved for property or business, behavior changes. Short-term happiness becomes optional. Growth becomes the priority. And that is where discipline replaces emotion. Every dollar either builds freedom or reinforces dependency. That decision happens at the allocation level. That is why we prioritize maxing out the Roth IRA as quickly as possible each year. Wealthy individuals prioritize tax-advantaged growth engines first before allocating capital anywhere else. It's the same structured mindset. The only difference is the size of the capital and the scale of the engines being funded. Same system, different scale. Once that foundation is secured, income can then accommodate Bitcoin allocation, property or business savings in a high-yield savings account, or additional index fund contributions in a brokerage account. Tax-free growth reduces long-term friction. When growth is protected from annual taxation, it compounds more efficiently and requires less constant adjustment. That structural protection lowers financial stress. Instead of worrying about property and business struggles, market timing, or short-term volatility, the focus shifts to consistent contribution and long-term expansion with a good investor's mindset. Consistency over emotion. Structure over impulse. And when the structure is doing the heavy lifting, investing stops feeling overwhelming, because the hard decisions were already made at the allocation level. This kind of growth structure makes property and business feel less stressful because there is simply less to manage and less to second guess. The foundation is already working in the background. From there, additional investments become expansion decisions, not survival decisions. Expansion, not survival. Structuring money this way feels different. It feels productive. It feels intentional. You're maximizing growth while protecting your net worth with tax-free compounding. Exactly how financially disciplined and wealthy individuals structure their system. The goal isn't to copy their lifestyle. It's to replicate their allocation model within your own budget. Now let's make it real. Let's take someone earning $50,000 per year after taxes and income as an example. $50,000 per year comes out to about $4,166 per month. Now, that number becomes real. It's no longer abstract annual income. It's a monthly flow of capital that either gets directed with intention or disappears without structure. Under a 70-20-10 model, 70% goes to necessities. That's about $2,916 per month, covering housing, food, transportation, insurance, utilities, minimal impulse spending. It's the foundation of daily life. Stability is handled. Now step back and look at what's left after necessities. $4,166 in total monthly income. $2,916 goes to necessities. About $35,000 in yearly expenses. That leaves $1,250 per month. And this is the number most people never calculate. That $1,250 is what most people end up spending on short-term happiness, blowing roughly $15,000 a year on nothing. This is the portion that usually vanishes. It slips away quietly, and over time, it creates the illusion that life is just hard and money is always tight. But the truth is that $1,250 isn't missing. It's just unmanaged. Unmanaged capital feels like scarcity. Structured capital feels like leverage. Instead of blowing that $1,250, a smart investor splits it between growth and enjoyment. 20% of income is intentionally directed toward investing, building ownership, growth, and long-term expansion. The remaining 10% is reserved for short-term happiness. It isn't chaos anymore. It's structured. 20% goes to investing. For someone making $50,000 a year, that's $833 a month. That $833 is working for you. Building ownership in productive assets, maxing out a Roth IRA, contributing to index funds, and fueling long-term growth. This is where expansion begins. Just $833 a month maxes out the Roth IRA in 8 months. And over 25 years, your total contributions add up to $166,600. With the S&P 500 growing at 8%, that same portfolio reflects growth that ends up at $487,000. The difference between your total contributions and your portfolio's total value is proof that using your money to make money creates a compounding effect that will earn more than you ever physically could. There are only 24 hours in a day. Your hands can only produce so much, but compounding doesn't sleep. It doesn't cap out. It keeps building on itself year after year. That's the real power. It can generate far more wealth than manual effort ever could. The S&P 500 grows because the companies inside it grow. As businesses increase revenue, expand operations, improve efficiency, and raise profits, their value rises. And since the S&P 500 represents 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the United States, that collective growth pushes the index upward over time. Many of these companies also pay dividends, a portion of their profits distributed to shareholders. Successful companies generate more cash than they immediately need, so instead of letting it sit idle, they return part of it to investors. When those dividends are reinvested back into the index, they purchase additional shares, which then generate even more dividends and capital appreciation. That cycle, business growth, profit generation, dividend distribution, and reinvestment, is the backbone of compound investing. Growth building on growth. You're not just holding stocks. You're owning profitable businesses that continuously produce cash flow and expand. And when that cash flow is reinvested, growth begins building on top of growth. Alongside building growth and ownership in the S&P 500, you still allocate 10% of your income to short-term happiness. That's about $416 per month for lifestyle, experiences, upgrades, and enjoyment. This ensures you're not just living for needs and long-term growth, you're still funding your wants, your enjoyment, and your daily satisfaction. You're not depriving yourself, you're just spending intentionally. Intentional, not impulsive. Most people don't want to face the reality that $1,250 is usually the exact portion of income that disappears. It gets eaten by impulse purchases, random upgrades, eating out too often, subscriptions you forget about, and lifestyle inflation that slowly creeps in. Then a year passes, and nothing has changed. Same income, same stress, same feeling of being behind. It's not that people don't earn enough, it's that their surplus has no direction. But instead of letting that $1,250 evaporate and watching the world move forward without you, we redirect it into growth. We give it a job. We turn it into ownership. We turn it into leverage. And this is where control returns. And here's the important part. Investing that portion does not mean you're living a miserable, restrictive life. There's still money being allocated every single month for short-term happiness. That's dinners out, experiences, small upgrades, enjoyment. You're not eliminating pleasure. You're just putting boundaries around it. All this really requires is impulse control, because unconscious spending is quietly stealing your future. Every random purchase feels small in the moment, but collectively, they delay your freedom. They delay your options. They delay your leverage. When you control that 30% instead of letting it control you, something shifts. You're no longer reacting. You're directing. And direction creates momentum. And here's the part most people overlook. $833 per month is more than enough to max out a $7,000 Roth IRA within a single year. This still leaves enough time and income. Once the Roth IRA is maxed, the $833 per month is freed up. Over the final 4 months of the year, that becomes $3,333 available for strategic allocation. This is expansion capital. That's when you direct it intentionally into Bitcoin, into savings for property or a business, or into index funds inside a brokerage account. Let's divide that expansion capital evenly. $1,666 toward a brokerage account investing in index funds and $1,666 positioned into Bitcoin. Over 25 years, investing $1,666 per year, split across 4 months, into the brokerage account at an 8% annual return would grow to roughly $122,000. Your total contributions over that period would be $41,650, and the remaining $80,350 comes from compounded growth in the market. Simultaneously, $1,666 per year, split across 4 months, allocated to Bitcoin at a conservative 15% annual growth compounds to approximately $410,000, with only $41,650 contributed. The contributions are the same. The outcomes are not. That's asymmetric upside layered on top of stable market exposure. This combination shows how structured investing lets different engines work simultaneously. The Roth IRA secures tax-free growth. The brokerage provides steady market exposure. And Bitcoin introduces high upside scarcity exposure, each with a distinct role in building long-term financial freedom. The engine has already been funded. The foundation has already been secured. Now the remaining capital becomes expansion. That's the difference structure creates. You handle protection first, you secure tax-free growth first, then you deploy excess capital with clarity instead of emotion. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is random. Nothing is dependent on extra income. It was always there. It just needed direction. Structure determines where money goes. Allocation determines how it grows. And over time, that structure compounds into freedom. The future isn't random. It's chosen.